Talking Bedlam football for the Tulsa World, Guerin Emig, sports columnist, joined by the two guys who know the teams the best. Eric Bailey covering the Sooners for the World, Eli Lederman on the OSU beat for us. Gentlemen, we have a pretty big football game in Stillwater Saturday night. This is usually a big deal to the state, to football fans just about everywhere. It's an even bigger deal this year considering the stakes. Big 12 championship game appearance at stake for Oklahoma, college football playoff implications. All sorts of numbers, both good and bad for the two programs in the history of the rivalry, and two very interesting seasons for these two teams. Eric, let's start with you and a quick question about the Sooners. Are they where they want to be, 10-1 and all heading into this game? What do you think?
Before the season, I think if you said Oklahoma was going to be 10-1 going into this game, a lot of fans would think everything's on a good pace. Spencer Rattler's a Heisman Trophy finalist. Defense is playing really well. And none of that's happened. It's strange going into Game 12 with none of those preseason expectations coming to a rival. So I think if you're 10-1 and you're Oklahoma right now, you're thankful. You still have all your goals in front of you. I think you really concentrate on, literally one game at a time. You can't look ahead because, especially in this game, this is going to be their toughest game of the season. I truly believe that, not only on the field, but just mentally. They're going to have to be mentally focused to play in this football game. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Eli, the assumption is Oklahoma State's a 3-point favorite in this game for a reason. Is that the excellence of the defense? Is that the more confident place that OSU seems to be compared to OU? What makes the Cowboys? What should make the Cowboys so unusually confident about the matchup Saturday?
Well, you mentioned confidence, and Eric brings up preseason expectations. I don't think anybody, in August, maybe outside of the team complex over here in Stillwater, would have pictured OSU in this position come Bedlam. And that confidence, absolutely, I think, is derived from a defense that surprised just about everybody, again, outside of that team complex. We just came from Lubbock, where they blanked Texas Tech on their home field for the first time since 1987. And they come in here into Bedlam confident. And that's probably the first time in a decade where that can be said and is the case. And it's why I think you got them as a 3-point favorite. I think it's why Oklahoma State fans should feel confident about Bedlam maybe for the first time in a while. And it's why I think this team is feeling pretty good going into Saturday.
No defense outside of Georgia's is playing with the ferocity of Oklahoma State's. It's been like that for weeks now. Eric, I ask, how in the world does Oklahoma, team that's inconsistent as it is offensively, now that Caleb Williams has encountered his first degree of difficulty, how in the world does Oklahoma move the ball and score points Saturday?
It's going to be hard. I mean, it really is. We saw what Oklahoma State did to Texas Tech, a team that, was it Baylor they had 500-plus yards on earlier this season? Or not Baylor.
Iowa State.
Iowa State. I apologize. They got Baylor this week. Yeah, so I really think, you look at that Oklahoma State defense, blanking Texas Tech and just being so physical. I mean, that's something the key for Oklahoma is just being physical. And the hard part for the Sooners right now is that offensive line. We don't know how serious Andrew Rames' injury is at center. It looks serious when he came off the field. If you don't have him available, Anton Harrison was taken out of the game at left tackle. They had to move pieces around on the offensive line just to get through that Iowa State game. So if you have a beat-up offensive line against this defensive front, this front seven, I mean, it's not going to be good for the Sooners. They're going to have to play at a high level. And you mentioned Caleb Williams. I think the key with him, teams are getting to scout him. Before when he first started, teams weren't really getting a lot of film on him. Now they know what he likes to do. Now they know what Lincoln Riley feels comfortable with him doing. I think that plays a key in this as well. We'll just see what happens. Oklahoma's going to have to play at their best to be successful on Saturday.
Williams is athletic and talented. We've seen that. Kennedy Brooks has proven at running back. Eric, you wrote about his past performances in the world today against OSU. There are some splendid receivers that the Cowboys are going to have to keep track of, Hazelwood and Mims among them. But Eli, have we reached a point, and this has been a question asked Mike Gundy and Jim Knowles lately, have we reached a point with this Oklahoma State defense that it doesn't matter who they line up against? If they do their thing, they're going to be dominant?
It hasn't mattered yet. I mean, they've gone up every week against an offense coming off a big day and a quarterback coming off a big day, and they've just neutralized that guy week in, week out. And I think, earlier in the season, we saw this defense their one flaw was really giving up big plays against Baylor, against Kansas State, Texas, Iowa State. They gave up some big plays, but in recent weeks they've been able to clamp down. And I think that's important this week, because for whatever you want to say about Caleb Williams' recent performances or the Sooners' recent performances, he's still got the ability, the raw talent to break off a 75-yard run. And I think that's going to be important this week, because if this defense does come into it like they've been playing that way, they're not going to give up much, but it's that little creativity that Caleb Williams has that could break this game and make a difference. And so for them this week, I think it's kind of about, maintaining the pace and the performance and not having that let down, but also about clamping down on those big plays.
One thing that is going, I think, unquestionably well right now for Oklahoma, Eric, is they've turned themselves back around defensively. They did struggle in the fourth quarter in the loss at Baylor the week before, but played, I thought, really well up until then. And that fatigue and the long run by Abram Smith sort of turned them the wrong direction, just specifically in that game. Played well for the most part against Iowa State over the weekend, getting turnovers, takeaways, something that had been a problem before this season. Is it weird to say that the Sooners approach a big game like Saturday's thinking that it's got to be their defense that wins it? They have to rely on especially Thomas, Redmond, Winfrey, Benito up front to really snuff out OSU's offense, make it a low enough scoring game that they can win this game.
It's hard to believe 2 years ago you would never have believed when Rich took over that the defense would have to carry this team to wins, and it's done it all season. When you look at games against Nebraska, against West Virginia, even Tulane early when they kind of slowed down in the second half when the offense struggled, it's going to have to be like that again. They're going to have to win this game. I think if you can pester Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders a little bit, try to force them into mistakes, try to get them to be inconsistent and keep the score down, I think that's going to be so important. The promising thing for Oklahoma fans is, against Iowa State, a veteran Iowa State team, they really played well. They played physical. They probably played more physical, it seemed like, than they have all season. Just real aggressive, and they're going to have that mentality going into the Oklahoma State game. And I think it could be a momentum builder when we saw what they did and how they played. They forced 3 turnovers, forced Iowa State to put the ball on the ground, I think 6 times. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key. The defense is going to have to be the really, after the end of the game, if Oklahoma wins, they're going to have to turn around and say they're going to have to really, I think, thank the defense for the victory.
A lot of talk all week, I'm sure, Eli, about Caleb Williams against the OSU defense. Is there a danger that we're overlooking the complement to that? How Sanders will play against OU's defense? Is that's got to factor in at some point Saturday night, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And I was impressed watching Oklahoma's defense last week against Iowa State, and they're going to be facing an OSU offense that's a little banged up itself. We'll see where things are at this week, but they're down a couple offensive linemen. With Josh Sills, it appears, is playing through some pain, but maybe he'll be back. We don't know about Danny Godlewski, and that pass rush could certainly play a factor. And then you look at Spencer Sanders, and he's played some of his best football of late. He's not turning the ball over the way he was earlier this season or in the past, but I don't think you can go into any game, especially a big one like this, and not be at least somewhat worried about that with him. And again, this is a game that there's a formula for Oklahoma State. The defense does its thing. They run the ball. You're looking maybe at similar wins that they've had this year, but the variable in that and something that could certainly let give Oklahoma some daylight again is Spencer Sanders turning the ball over. So I think they're going to need another composed performance from him, see what he can do with his legs, and just hope that he can hold on to the football.
The mentality of this game has been so big. And the thing everyone jumps on is Mike Gundy's difficulty with the 2-14 lifetime record against Oklahoma. But everyone talks about the head game when these two teams get together, and 90% of the time, Eric, it favors the Sooners. They just know they're going to beat OSU. It doesn't matter the records of the teams, the location, the spread, the stakes. The Sooners most of the time find a way. Because the mentality has been, I don't know if fragile is the right word, right? But it's questionable, maybe. Maybe that's a better word, all season long, despite the 10-1 record. The question to you is, can they rely on any old confidence, any past results to make a big difference going into this game in terms of mentality?
Yeah, I think the coaching staff will really be pumping that into their heads, but also they're going to have them focus on this is a new year, a new team. This isn't the Baker Mayfield team or the Jalen Hurts or Kyler Murray team, or even Spencer Rattler last year. This is a brand new team, and they're going to have to go out there and earn it. They played better against Iowa State than they did against Baylor, and if you're a coach, you probably just tell them to keep that momentum. And also, the important thing for Oklahoma is they have to win this game. If they don't win this game, their regular season's over, and they're going to a bowl game and with bypassing the Big 12 title game, which hasn't happened ever since they reinstalled that game. So I really think that that's going to be a focal point. You play for your goals. Oklahoma State is just another team in the way, and I'm not saying that lightly by any ways,
right?
Because this is the next game on the schedule, but it just happens to be Bedlam. So they're going to have to go into a hostile stadium. This will be the fiercest stadium they've been in, and they're going to have to go out there and perform. And I think the coaches understand that, the players understand it. It just comes down to an execution standpoint.
What do you think, Eli? Is the pressure on or off the Cowboys? Is it on because they're the favorite and they're suddenly the team expected to win, or is it off because they don't know themselves to be a favorite in this rivalry? And the brand is still in OU's corner, and everyone expects. So, the national narrative is going to be they'll find a way. They almost always do. And so let's just go out and do our thing, not worry about it. Which way do you go there?
I think it's kind of a 50-50 split because Oklahoma State has locked up its place in the Big 12 title game. It's a favorite at home. It should feel good about its defense, but you look at the history, Mike Gundy 2-14 in Bedlam games. OU has owned this rivalry, and Oklahoma State still has the most realistic playoff expectations of anybody in this conference. And so there absolutely is pressure in this game and pressure about not letting it slip. And that's what Mike Gundy's talked about, is not with the defense, not having a letdown. And the fact that this team, isn't like the 2011 team, that it can have an off week and still get away with a win. I think that we all agree, probably the three of us in here, it's going to be a close game no matter what. And so I would say plenty of pressure over here in Stillwater on the Cowboys Saturday.
Okay, last thing. It's like all rivalries, you tend to see players or topics come up that you just didn't expect. You cover the obvious ones and even some of the the subplots, and yet there's someone or something that happens that just blows you away and makes a big difference in the game. I guess back to you, Eric, to start with. Do you have an idea of who that might be or what that might be for Oklahoma as we go through the week?
It's funny because we see the tweets over the weekend from Tay Martin, just boldly predicting, that they're going to beat Oklahoma. But to preface that, it sounds like that was his attitude for every game this season. They plan on beating the opponent. Now, Oklahoma can read into that and say, hey, this is some stuff for the bulletin board that we can use as motivation. And even though we're not seeing the full context of the quote, I think it'll filter back to that locker room, and it'll be something that
they definitely will.
Yeah, they won't publicly say it's a big deal, but inside those walls, I know that's a quote that's probably being said over and over, and it's going to be a motivational factor. So I think early on, we're early in the week now. I think that's a key, and moving forward, I think there'll be other things emerge. It's a holiday week, so we won't get a lot of access or the typical stuff, but I still think there'll be something emerging later this week that will make this game even spicier.
Anything beneath the surface with regard to the Cowboys, Eli, that you expect to pop up?
Well, I imagine Tay Martin's quote, most certainly, probably without all the proper context, has certainly found its way into the locker room at OU. And I think, with the Cowboys, all the talk about the defense, you've got to just have some questions with the offense, not so much about its ability, but its health. We saw Jaylen Warren run on Saturday, and he didn't quite look like himself, and the team acknowledged he's banged up. Got a couple injuries on the offensive line and in the run blocking. And so we'll see where the health is, and they may do at Texas Tech. But for all the talk about the defense, I think you've just got to wonder where this offense is going to be on Saturday and what kind of pressure that adds onto the defense. And can they put enough points on the board to support that defense?
Well, you both have intimated it's going to be close. Either one of you have an inkling as to which way it's going to go yet?
I don't. I really don't. I think it's close is the key word. You think back 20 years. What was it, 16-13? Oklahoma State over OU.
Yeah.
You think back, in a game when Oklahoma was supposed to blow out OSU a few years ago in Norman, it was 48-47 with OSU trying for a 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
games that you think are going to be blowouts are close, vice versa. I just think this is going to be a close game. Go to the wire. I'll be honest. I don't know who to pick. It's coin flip for me. I know in Vegas, it's on Oklahoma State's a 3-point favorite, which is usually home field. So it sounds like it's a coin flip in Vegas too. So I think later in the week I have an idea, but right now it's hard to say. Really good game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bedlam rookie, so I'm gonna stay away from making any kind of predictions here. But I think close is the story. I don't think Oklahoma State has enough offensively to just come in there and blow them out of the water. It's not going to be that 44-10 scoreline from 2011, that's for sure. But I think coin flip, and if you're Mike Gundy and co, you probably feel all right in a coin flip game just on the basis of that defense. But I don't think any of us at this point in the week can know much about what's going to go down Saturday.
For sure. Well, you guys have written some about the game already. You'll have a whole lot more the rest of the week. All three of us will be at Boone Pickens Stadium to provide coverage on Saturday night. We thank everyone for reading our work and our coverage in the Tulsa World and at tulsaworld.com. Fellas, enjoy the game. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your families, and we'll see you in the press box on Saturday night.